Barry the batsman. Good old Barry. He played 20 innings of cricket, and for those of you who aren't sports fans, that means he batted 20 times. And his scores, every time he batted, his scores got recorded, and here's what his scores look like. There's 20 numbers there, each one representing his score every time he batted. I'm going to create a stem and leaf plot out of this. So first thing I want to do is I want to rewrite those numbers in order, because you'll see in a minute why it's easier to do that than to just work with the jumbled up data. So I'm going to take those scores, and this might take a little bit of time, but it's worth doing. It's going to make life a bit easier. I'm going to rewrite them in order. I can see that the smallest score, the lowest score he got was 2. Barry had a bad day and only got 2 runs. So that's going to be my first number. Now, a little tip or a little technique for doing this is to cross them out as you go so you don't get confused and do the number again. I'm going to have a look now on my list of numbers, and the next one up from 2 looks like 5 is the next score, and I can see there's 2 of those, so I'm going to cross it out as I list it. Okay, and you see, cross this one out and put it on my list, and I'm going to work through the process. The next one was a 6. I can see the next one on my list is probably 11. And I can see that 11, actually, beg your pardon, 11 actually happens 3 times. Then there's a 12, and then a 17, and I'm crossing them out as I go. Looks like 19 is the next one on my list. Oh, I missed it. Sorry, there was 18 over here, then 19. There's no more, so then I jump up into the 20s. It looks like 22 is the next one, and etc, etc. I'm going to jump forward so you don't listen to me faff on for the whole time. You'll see now I've got those scores all listed in order, from the lowest, which was 2, up to the highest, which was 39. I'm going to check that I didn't miss any. If I add all those up, I can see there are 20 scores, which is good because I know I had 20 to start with in my list of data. All right, let me see what's next. So I'm going to now draw a little vertical line, okay? And this is going to represent the heart of my stem and leaf plot. So if you think of like a stem and leaf, I guess you picture things like a tree that has a stem and leaves and little branches coming off it. So we're going to do just that. We're going to start with this. Now, what goes down the left-hand side of my line? What goes down the left-hand side is the tens digits. Okay, so if I look at my scores, they go from 2 up to 39. The tens digits for these numbers would be a 0, because 2 could be written as 02. The tens digits for these scores, 11 up to 18, would be the 1. The tens digit for the 20s would be the 2. And the tens digit for the 30s would be the 3. And that's where I'm going to, what I'm going to put down the left-hand side of my stem and leaf. My 0s, my 10s, my 20s, and my 30s. So I'm just going to put the tens digit first of all. On the other side now is where I start to list the actual scores that relate to those tens. So here's what I mean. Looking at my scores here, 2, 5, 5, and 6. They both going to sit in this row, and I'm just going to simply pop them on there. The 2, the 5, and the 6. Okay, so that row there represents scores of 02, 05, 05, and 06. 2, 5, 5, 6. And we're just going to repeat the process. That's all there is to it now. If I have a look at the next section, these are the scores that all sit between 10 and 19. And I'm going to work my way along. I can see there are 3 scores of 11. So on my leaves side, I'm going to do a 1, a 1, and a 1. That represents 11, 11, and 11. Okay, because I've got the tens digits of 1, the ones digits of 1, 1, 1. So the 12 will be 2, the 17, what was next? 18, and the 19. So hopefully you can start to see a bit of a pattern forming here as I go along. I'm just repeating that process. So now I'm going to go to the 20s scores in the 20s that have the 2 as the tens digit. I say 22, 22, 23, and 28. So 22, 22, 23, and 28. So I'm just writing out the ones digit for each of those scores, and I'm going to do the same now with the 30s. I've got a 30, a 31, 32, 32, and a 39. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call a stem and leaf plot. The stem is represented by the tens column, and the leaves are the units, or in the ones column, okay, representing the total number of scores. Now, the reason we do that is we're looking for patterns. Just like we did with the dot plot, a visual representation is a lot easier for us to look for any patterns or things about the data or observations that we couldn't just see in a big blob of numbers. So if I have a look at that, or I might ask you, what observations do you think you could make about Barry's batting? Well, if I have a look at that, I could easily, quickly say, look, you know what? Barry's not all that great. Most of the time, he's going to score less than 20 because most of his scores are under 20. Like I look at this here. Most likely, he's going to get a score somewhere in the teens, or somewhere between 10 and 19, because that's where I can see visually the biggest row of numbers is. That's one of the reasons we would use a stem and leaf plot, to give us a visual representation of the data. Good job.